September 1st was a very, very bad day. The Germans drove into ghetto. They surrounded our 3 hospitals. We had a general hospital, children's hospital, and hospital for contagious disease. They took out all the patients, put them on trucks, and drove them out of ghetto for extermination. And then they announced that all children and all old people will be deported.
Irene Furst is remembering that awful day in 1942 when the Germans came into the Lodz ghetto and began emptying it of the Jews. On that day, 25,000 people were taken out for extermination, but Irene's long journey didn't begin or end on September 1st, 1942. It all began in the Polish city of Lodz.
It was an industrial city. It had a population of about 750,000 people, of 1/3 were Jews. My parents were middle class, I would say rather well-to-do. They owned a ladies' wear store. I had one sister who was 5 years younger, but I had a large extended family.
When Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, the life Irene and her family knew came to an abrupt halt when discriminatory laws against Jews were enacted.
That the Nuremberg laws against the Jews went to effect right away. Jews were not allowed to own businesses, which meant that my parents had to give up their store. Jews were not allowed to employ non-Jews, so the maid, the Polish maid, who lived with us for as long as I could remember, had to leave. Jews were ordered to turn over all their valuables to the Germans. Jews were not allowed to worship. The synagogues were destroyed.
By January 1940, life changed. All Jews were ordered to live together in an assigned territory, a Jewish ghetto.
Lodz ghetto was the first ghetto to be established and the last one to be dissolved. Now, when we went into ghetto, we had to register. And it was established that there were about 160,000 Jews when ghetto closed. It was a small town. We had our own administration, Jewish police, Jewish fire department, even jail. We had hospitals. The Jewish head of ghetto was the famous or infamous Chaim Rumkowski. He was called the Judenälteste, which means the eldest of Jews, appointed by the Germans. And slowly, ghetto organized. We always had cold winters in Poland, in Lodz, but it seemed to us that the winters of 1940 and 1941 were the coldest in our memory, and we had nothing to warm up the apartments with. You see, we were completely dependent on the Germans. They were food distributing places, and food was rationed.
They faced hunger daily, but also the threat of deportation. The Germans would demand Jews, and Rumkowski would deliver them, 5,000, 10,000, whatever they asked.
He did follow their orders, but truthfully, if he didn't, they would have found out somebody else who did.
Every Jew was ordered to work. Factories were set up to provide goods for the Germans.
I had the best job in ghetto.
Hospitals were warm and hospitals had food. Irene stayed there until the Nazis emptied all hospitals in September 1942, and more people continued to die throughout the ghetto, including Irene's beloved grandmother and then her mother.
In spring 1944, we were told that ghetto will be liquidated. Now, why was ghetto being liquidated? Because the Soviet army was already nearing Warsaw. It is summer 1944. I left with my father and my sister on August 26. We were taken by a train and squeezed in. It took hours and hours and hours, and our destination was Auschwitz. When we arrived in Auschwitz, we were told to disembark, and we were met by tall SS men, each one with a German shepherd next to him. Then the Germans ordered for men and women to separate. I said goodbye to my father, and that was the last time I have seen my father. Anybody who looked too young or too old was taken away. My sister started to cry, and I took her hand and I said to her, whatever happens, we are together. I said, just hold on to me. We were shaved. We were told that we were given a shower. Now, I learned later that the people who were guests also were told that they will take a shower, but instead of water, gas came from the pipes. But the water came down on us.
5 days later, Irene and her sister were sent to a work camp in Stutthof on the Baltic Sea. It was a perilous life for the prisoners.
We were about 1,600 people in a barrack that could probably accommodate 500 or 600. So pretty soon we were covered with lice. And what did the lice bring with it? Brought typhus. And one after another, we got sick. Our people were dying like flies. When I told you that my sister saved me, I remember that even so I survived the fever, I was so sick and so weak that all I wanted was to go to sleep and never get up. And then one evening, I heard somebody calling out, please somebody help me, I'm so thirsty, please somebody help me. And I realized that it was my sister's voice. I took care of her, but I couldn't save her. But I always feel that she saved me.
Irene survived Stutthof, survived a death march, survived inhumane conditions. She was liberated in the spring of 1945.
My story is really an unbelievable. You have a ghetto, you have Auschwitz. From my experience, I know that in the dehumanized conditions that the Germans exposed us to, we had to remain humane and helped each other. And that's the way I survived, because I helped others and others helped me.